You're watching Mr. Winter.
Hello, I'm Mr. Winter. Thank you for tuning in to People Do Fun Jobs. You're most welcome, of course. So, this episode is a little bit different. I've released 2 so far previously. You can listen and download those on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can also watch them on YouTube if you want the sort of visual version, because I like to make things for you to watch and listen. So that's how you can obtain the podcast so far. This one's a little bit different. So I'm going to go into detail about this and why I'm making this episode. But I basically went away recently on a trip that was shortened quite drastically to what it was supposed to be for obvious reasons. We're going to get into it. But before I went away, I recorded 4 episodes with 5 different podcast guests who do really fun jobs. They're super talented, and there is, I think, going to make for interesting viewing and listening. So I'm going to release those very soon. That's coming up with People Do Fun Jobs. This one's a little kind of interrupting the normal flow of things, and I just kind of want to document what's happening for me during this time, because I've got a lot of bloody time on my hands at the moment. So firstly, the title of the episode is How Corona Cock-Blocked Me, and I'm okay with that. So firstly, let's explain cock-block, because I don't know if this is just strictly an English thing, and if it whether or not it translates beyond the British shores. So I actually looked up the official description so I could give you a fair and detailed explanation. What does cock-block mean? Thank you dictionary.com for this, by the way. Cock-blocking is the action. Yes, except cookies, Jesus. Cock-blocking is the action of preventing someone, usually a man, from having sex by intentionally or unintentionally stopping someone else's cock from reaching its intended destination. This behaviour could be driven by jealousy, competition, genuine concern for one of the people involved, or simple obliviousness, or by accident. So the person who does the blocking may be called a cock block or a cock blocker. So you can be cock blocked or you can be cock blocking someone. So just to explain, that's where it comes from. I'm putting a little twist on that and getting Corona as the cock blocker. So hopefully that explains the title a little bit, and I'm going to go into why it's completely fine that this pandemic's got in the way. Now, it's not got in the way of any kind of sexual conquest for me. Let's make that perfectly clear. This is a lot more PG. Now I've said the C word about 300 times. This is about cock-blocking my travel plans. So, for quite a while, I was planning on this big kind of world trip. I turned quite an old age, and the oldest age I've turned yet. I believe that's how it works. A big round number anyway, and I wanted to celebrate that by being away and going on a very long journey away from home, and actually the furthest I can get away pretty much from Great Britain, and that was Australia. So I had plans to go, and I had the work holiday visa thing, so I had a year away there in the can, and I had every intention on turning that into 2 years, the way you do that in Australia, if you don't know, as a British citizen. I think this applies to people from America and Canada and that kind of thing as well, other parts of Europe. But you can basically do a lot of farm work and agricultural work and contribute to that industry for Australia, and they grant you a longer time to live there. So anyway, I had year 1 planned, and then year 2 I wanted to do. You can also extend to year 3, and if you specialize in something or you're qualified in something that the government there thinks will be useful to them, you can look at sponsorship and looking at more permanent citizenship over there. Who knows if that was what was going to happen for me, but certainly 1 year or 2 years was what I was planning on doing, traveling the country, working in different towns and cities, meeting as many people as possible and soaking in as much of that culture as I could. That was the plan. The plan was to do that straight after a 2-week break in Bali, because Bali in Indonesia is very close to Australia, and that was the plan, to do 2 weeks kind of holiday there. And I got to Bali, I'm going to say it's the 9th of March, and I had the most amazing first week in Bali. I was turning a big number at the end of that week, so I wanted to make sure I was somewhere new and exciting and beautiful for it, which I was, and I made a amazing group of friends very quickly. Went to a place called Canggu, which is quite a party place to end up. If you've been, you know all about it. It's a really, really fun, happening place for people to go, and it's not that far from the airport, so it's often kind of a first stop for people to end up there or to start their journey there. So I did that, partied every day, pool parties, I stayed in an incredible hostel called Clandestinos, which was recommended by my brother who was there. They had a little family of puppies. They had a pool, incredible staff, just so lovely, and I made some really good friends very quickly in that week, and they really helped me celebrate a big birthday, so shout out to them. That was week 1. By the end of that week, I was like, okay, cool. I think I've had enough of this heavy partying for now. Let's go and see a bit of Bali. My 2 weeks is running out. I'm halfway through already, and I haven't really done anything too cultural. So I headed to the center of Bali, Ubud, which is very famous for its kind of meditation retreats, yoga retreats, and jungles and monkeys, monkey forests, and just general well-being and kind of calmer vibes. So that's where I headed, and had a really lovely time. Again, made a new family of friends, and climbed a mountain overnight and saw a sunrise in the morning. Not bragging, okay, maybe I'm showing off a little bit because it's not something that I usually do or have done. Trekking in the pitch black with steep drops to the top of a volcano is not something I usually do. So Mount Batur, it was called, highly recommend it, and saw the sunrise. We actually had the best sunrise they've had all rainy season, which is, I don't know exactly when it is, but around March time is that's still happening. So they had one of the clearest skies, so that was beautiful, and there were monkeys living right at the top of that mountain, ready to nick your sandwiches. And then during that week, things started to change. The dreaded corona situation started developing and evolving quite quickly, and I was receiving a lot of sort of voice notes and messages from friends and family back home about the situation happening back here in Europe and how quickly things were moving. Now, in Bali, and I think in Indonesia and also Thailand, from all the travelers that I met, I was right at the start of my journey, but I was obviously around people who were really deep into their travels and whatever, and people from all over the world. And what I grasped from them was Indonesia and Thailand seemed like places that travelers were heading to sort of just kind of seek refuge, travel refuge. They were sort of the last places that were still open for business. I think there was a lot of denial from the governments, and airlines, airports, all that kind of thing were open for business. Just let them in. I don't think they were screening many of their citizens or their visiting folk, and I don't think they were reporting figures very truthfully either. And so it seemed like it wasn't really happening there. It felt like Corona's exploding around the world, but it's not touched us yet. So it felt very safe, and it felt almost irrelevant, and I was ignoring my phone as much as possible. Anyway, we then, near the end of week 2 of my trip, traveling now with a group of friends that we're kind of sticking together a little bit, somewhat. And we get on a ferry to go spend a few days on an island just outside of Bali called Nusa Penida, which is just it's on those lists of places to visit around the world that you must see before you die, you know, paradise if you ever saw it. So we got a ferry to this place, really excited, bags packed with us, you know, we're flying across the sea. The ferry pulls in, we're walking in shallow waters with our bags on our back, and find a nearby restaurant to sit down, kind of gather our thoughts and plans, and like, okay, where we're going to stay, what we're going to do. Had a really good group with us at that point. And just ordering lunch, and on my phone I received news. I can't remember if it's from a news source or from a person, but I received news that Australia are going to be closing their borders to all international people at 9 p.m. on Friday. That was the 20th of March. We're on Thursday, the 19th of March at this stage. Bear in mind, people are advising me to speed up my trip in Bali and just get a flight to Australia while I still can. Me being me, I'm like, no, I want to get the most out of my trip in Bali. You know, that's what it's all about. And I read this news and went, fuck, you know, okay, we gotta get the wheels into motion now, and I've got to get there. And it was very dramatic. You know, I had a 3-hour wait for the next ferry back from this island to the mainland of Bali, then another 1.5-hour drive to the airport. All this time with the internet that's just not working, trying to book a flight, trying to get home to book a flight. I booked a flight, booked it a week too late. I've really fucked that one up. And anyway, there's a race against the clock to get a flight out of Bali to Australia to be able to make it in time for this 9 p.m. border closure. It was inevitable. Borders are closing everywhere, and at some point it's going to happen in Australia, and I'm going to, you know, I was only a week away in my head from getting there anyway. So I make it to the airport. It's about 6 p.m. at this stage. I've got a matter of 2 flights that I can try and get on, and under the advice and suggestion of the staff at the airport, I book any flight to Australia, and then they can put me on a waiting list for these final 2 flights. Not the final 2 flights to Australia, but the final 2 flights that will get me to Australia in time before those borders close. Because I think if I'm there at 9:15 p.m, I don't think Mr. Australia Prime Minister is going to let me in. I missed that first one. There's too many people on that waiting list, and then there's literally 1 flight left to Sydney, and I'm on the list, and it's looking really good because there's about 5 of us doing that from various internationals, desperately trying to get on any flight on this last flight. 20 people weren't coming to that flight that were booked on, which meant there was ample space available to get onto the plane. 2 girls in front of me managed to get on that flight. They got on it just fine. I, however, get this close. My bag is on the conveyor belt. My passport has been checked. I'm checked in. My visa, my working holiday visa, has been approved. And then something flags up, and the guy's looking at my passport, and he's like speaking to his supervisor. They're looking at my passport, they're looking at the computer screen. You know, that in itself is a bit of a red flag. You're like, fuck, okay, what's going on here? And they took a while, and I sort of, you know, I'm starting to get a bit antsy. I've got like half an hour before this flight is supposed to take off, and I'm like, is everything okay here? And he's like, there's a problem with your passport. I'm like, have I committed a crime I'm not aware of here? And this is happening, and I'm finding out now that was illegal. You know, don't get caught is the trick, really. So I'm waiting, desperately waiting for anything to come out of their mouth, but they're being very secretive about it. He's on the phone calling someone, and then I start to notice all around, every check-in here and every check-in behind, about maybe 15 check-in staff, all checking people to this flight. to Sydney, the last one that will get me there in time. Everyone's looking round at each other. They're all on the phone and they're all in a state of confusion. I have got 5 minutes at this point to board the plane and nothing is happening. They're telling me they're not sure what's happening. But the conclusion of this situation, what me and the staff thought, bear in mind, and this is what's interesting about the whole corona situation, is we're all in it together. No one knows what the fuck is going on and what's happening. And as things change and evolve, we're all learning it together. I'm at the airport and I know as much as the staff know. And the word is Australia has pulled the plug on any further passengers boarding this plane. Why? I couldn't tell you why. The two girls in front of me, one was French, one was German, I think. They were right ahead of me. They got on that flight. So there was a plane sat there with a lot of room, a lot of empty seats, with my name on one of those seats. And we just don't go anywhere. And eventually the staff stop desperately trying to call Australia or whoever was the body in charge of approving passengers onto the flight. They give up. They put the phones down and stop calling. I'm like, guys, we've still got 5 minutes here. Can we just please try again if we can? They're like, sir, there's no point. And I'm stood there with another girl who's in the same position as me, going, what's happening here? Are we not getting on the flight? And they're like, I'm sorry, it's not possible. So you can imagine how overwhelming and slightly stressful this all is. You know, your 2-year plan of a big life change was 5 minutes away from happening. So a little bit of a stressful day, that one. So stressful day. I put myself into a nearby hostel to the airport. Really couldn't be bothered with dealing with any further travel that day. And really nice place, trying to relax in the garden with some beers and just cool down. And there were just two rats fighting around me the whole time. You know, I kept sort of having to bang the leg on my chair just to make sure when they'd gone quiet they weren't sort of sniffing me out. So anyway, stressful day, and it kind of changed my way of thinking, though. I really tried to not let it depress me or anger me, get me down in any way. What I wanted to do was enjoy my time in Bali. So actually then my trip extended to week 3 and week 4. I got 2 more weeks out of Bali, and I have to see it as everything happens for a reason. There were so many flights I booked, planes that never took off. I'm still trying to claim that money back. There's days that I should have gone to the airport, or I would have gone and I didn't. And I was about to board the last flight out of Bali to Australia that would get me there in time. It was all lined up and it was taken away from me. But I'm not pissed off about it, because I had an incredible 2 weeks after that. Without sounding too cheesy about it, it was kind of life-changing. I got very involved in the culture there and tried new things, pushed myself out of comfort zones and relaxed, and was just around good people. I stumbled across an incredible place called the Bali Flow Temple, and it's in the jungle just outside of Ubud in the center of Bali, and it's usually a yoga retreat. It's kind of got a bit of a commune vibe about it. We got there late at night, exhausted, and we're like, okay, not sure about this. Let's see how it plays out tomorrow by day. And, the back garden was a jungle. So if you go on my Instagram, you'll be able to see at some point a little video of the jungle there. And also a magical night. The last night I had in Bali was just a very spiritual experience, bonding with 10 or 15 incredible people. And it really was the perfect end to strange, stressful, relaxing, fun and beautiful trip is the best way to put it. Now, the reason I'm not annoyed about all this, despite the fact that I did come home after just under 1 month instead of 2 to maybe 3 years and beyond. Kind of crazy when you think about it like that. And also the fact that my flight, finally, that did take off with me on it back home, was twice the price it should have been. Not going to mention any names here because I think they're all as guilty as each other for kind of cashing in this time of crisis and chaos. But I can't possibly start to feel victimized by the situation. That would be incredibly selfish and unrealistic to what's actually happening. Everyone is affected by this, and that was the incredible journey that happened from my first party week in Bali to how it evolved and how I saw the country, but how things started closing and people started leaving. Everyone I met started going home, and that became the conversation as much as I was trying to deny it. And this last place we ended up, Bali Flow Temples, the most beautiful week, that felt like a safe haven, but almost a sense of false safety. You know, we weren't very aware of what was happening because we're not really checking the news deliberately and not really knowing what's going on. And I could have stayed out there longer. I really could have. I had enough funds to last a couple of months out there. It's very affordable to live out there. But do you know what I kept thinking of? I kept thinking about the beach, the film and the book, The Beach, how everyone finds paradise. And then that, after a while, becomes hostile and dangerous and aggressive and not paradise, the opposite of. And I kept thinking about that as the situation was evolving. And I kept thinking, well, do I want to go home to Europe where the cases are rising and it seems there's lockdown everywhere? It's strict, you know. Whereas here I can ride around on my scooter and go to a beach, or, you know, go for a drive through the rainforest or whatever it is. But I kept thinking about this reference. And actually we met a local. I won't go into detail about who he is, but a very well-connected local. And he obviously understands the culture incredibly well and thoroughly. And it's a place that has a lot of poverty, you know, Indonesia. And it's a place that is built on tourist trade, and it's built on farming. Now, if you get rid of tourists, because that's what's happening everywhere in the world, if it's not already happened, everywhere is closing. Every tourist site is closing. Airports are closing. You know this. If you get rid of that industry, what does that leave? That leaves farming rice mostly, in Bali anyway. And it means that these families, and they're big families, that are living very much hand to mouth day by day according to the work that they have. If you get rid of that, what happens to this lovely, friendly, welcoming local community? I think it has the potential to go sour and to become hostile and dangerous and intimidating, especially if you're not from a foreign land. This is me telling my experience, but I think it probably translates to a lot of different countries if you're a foreigner in that country. I don't know how safe you are there or how safe you should feel there. You know, it's no longer a holiday and it's no longer a retreat or a place of discovery. I think we need to be in survival mode now. This is what we're all doing. You know, we're all abiding by rules, and they were late to the party, Indonesia and I think Thailand. They're very late to the party, but I think they're there now. I think they're there in policing and, you know, not allowing as much fluidity and freedom for people and what they want to do. Slowly but surely. I think I've made a good decision. I've come back to somewhere that is home, and I've come back because of family, and I've come back because of the systems that are in place as well. It's just a privilege that we have access to benefits and still a healthcare system that's under incredible strain. But those are privileges that are important. And furlough, for Christ's sakes, people are being paid to not work. So the government are supporting their people here for now. And it's not something that was guaranteed me staying in a rainforest with beautiful people in maybe a full sense of security. I don't know. The whole point of all of this is none of us know anything really, truly. You got to just try and make the right choices. And that's listen to guidelines. Stay home, wash your fucking hands, So I think I've made the right decision. It feels right. My plan is certainly to head back to Australia once it's safe to do so and once the borders are lifted. But I have friends there. I have friends from England in Australia who are struggling with work, and I have friends who are citizens of Australia. They are Australians and they are struggling to get back into their jobs. So what kind of experience would that be, right? But this is the point. This is why I'm calm about all of this, is I'm not thinking in selfish terms. It's not my place to do that. This is far greater than any trip I wanted to go on. For friends who are out there, I'm encouraging them to stick it out as long as they can, of course, but I can't sit here and weep and moan and feel negatively about it, because there's a big situation happening. There are people who are in actual unsavory situations. So we got to look after ourselves and each other, and that's the point. And I'm going to stay focused and positive as much as possible. And I hope you are all doing that as well, and managing to. One massive thing for me is exercise. I've been doing it every day as soon as I wake up, and maybe again later. I'm not bragging about this. I'm not someone who is naturally capable of sports or naturally drawn to doing it. My friends will tell you that, but it's so important. It's so important for your mind, and we're still allowed to go out once a day to do that hour's exercise. So get out there, England, and just work out a little bit. So that's how I'm getting through. I'd love to know how you are and how you're dealing with all of this. So in summary, that's how Corona cock-blocked me, but I'm fine with it because it's far greater than me. And things are going to improve and things are going to change. There's always positive and negative. We might have to go through a really fucking horrible roller coaster of a journey to get there, but we will get there for sure. So thank you for listening to the podcast or watching it on YouTube. So I'll see you soon with the episodes that I have pre-recorded before COVID-19. I will be releasing those, but I will also be back with more conversations with friends. I think it's time I actually bring people from outside into the conversation. I think I've said all I wanted to say about my experience in the situation and my thoughts. So I'm going to bring in friends from around the world and see what their situation is, how they're doing and what's going on, and just keeping a general positive outlook on all of this. So a lot more content to come. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Mr. Winter signing out.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more videos. Just search Mr. Winter Official. This is Mr. Winter. Let's go!